honestly, we're just gonna get right into it. This is Spirit Uncut. I'm Spirit. Today we're gonna talk about the changes I've seen within community. Basically, what's gonna happen, or I'm seeing happening at least, is that communities are being based around ideology, and people are allowing themselves to go into communities and also create them around ideology, and basically putting a lot more time and effort and energy into groups and communities based around shared thought over one's identity. And from a traditional standpoint, a lot of communities have been based around one's identity and where, you know what I mean, you kind of stood, or those that looked like you, right? Whether it was race, gender, sexuality, nationality, or just ethnicity. That's the way in which communities have been formed and um, basically maintained for a large facet of human history. Now, I don't believe or think that communities are, you know what I mean, just going to dissolve based off of race or gender or sexuality. I don't. But what I am seeing now is that there are a lot more people who are able and willing, I should say, to go ahead and align themselves with certain groups and certain communities. And it is all because of belief and thought and ideology. There's no other reason behind it other than just we agree on the same shit or we think alike. And that has a lot of pros and cons. Obviously, what I'm seeing now is a lot more leaned towards the cons of things just because of the ways in which these people are acting because of their community, as well as the types of communities and groups that we are seeing, I guess, created in those that are deciding to be a part of them. But overall, you know, I have observed, and I am observing that, you know what I mean, identity is not enough to keep someone a part of a community or keep someone interested in their community. And, you know, what we're probably going to see, especially going, you know, forward, is that there are a lot more like found families, chosen families, things of that nature that are based around ideology or thought than there are in actual blood or actual, you know, relation for one reason or another. Um, and the main reason I came to this conclusion is because of Kanye West, right? Mind you, I think this is the 12th of February currently. And I believe, you know, the like 9th of February, 8th of February, one of those days is when we really got to see those big crazy rants from Kanye. And obviously, he didn't really say anything or express any thought or opinion that he hasn't shared in the past. But I do think the severity of his messaging and how extreme he was this last or more recent time is what has allowed a lot of people to be like, whoa, you know, as well as the fact that given his statements, which I'm not going to repeat, given his statements, you know, you wouldn't think he's a black man. You wouldn't, right? Let alone a black man that has, you know, bipolar, you know, or autism, either one, right? You would not think that based off of what he said, at least in the form of like being able to agree and find, I guess, community with others in those opinions and in those thoughts. And it's the fact that someone so, I guess, idolized as Kanye is able to say those things, as well as, I don't want to say he didn't get any pushback or get minimal pushback, but he's able to say those things, and so many people like the tweets or, you know, comment and have their own um, part to weigh in, right? And it's so interesting too because within that weekend, you know, basically the Super Bowl weekend, I saw that like there are a lot of people who call themselves pastors and, you know, leaders of churches and things of this nature agreeing with him and liking his tweets. And obviously I understand that it's not a reflection of everyone of a certain religion. I'm not trying to convey that. But I do believe that the simple fact is that we have now crossed a threshold where identity is not enough to keep you a part of a community. It's just not. And right now we're seeing basically a lot of people fall into like, you know, right winged, white superiority, fascist mindsets and or beliefs. But I don't know. It's so interesting how, 20 years ago, had someone talked about a black Nazi or, a Mexican, white supremacist, those would have been jokes. No one would have really taken them seriously or saw any, I guess, merit or value in them beyond, humor. Because the idea of that being real or like something that actually could and or would happen was so ridiculous, honestly. Go teleport back into the 90s, right? Put your brain, into the timeline of 1990s and imagine somebody with all seriousness calling themselves a black Nazi. No one would take them serious. No, regardless of how, you know what I mean, dead set or like real the speaker meant by what they said, the audience wouldn't have believed them. The audience would have taken it as a joke. Period. Just because, what the fuck you mean you a black Nazi? You're a dumbass, you know? But now that's a new reality. That's a new thing. And I would like to say that like, oh, we've only seen it with Kanye, but we haven't. I don't remember what the man's name was, what the boy's name was, but it was some. I think he was. And I also think he's like a kid too. Some like black kid, black boy, like definitely like a teenager or something like that. Fell into like white superiority, like fascist sort of ideology in communities, and like after either getting arrested for his crimes and or him deciding to take the easy way out, um we see it, right? Like we saw so many communities and discourse and texts and everything of these different people telling him and basically emboldening him to act and behave in such a way. um and that's fucking weird, right? It's fucking weird. It's crazy. And it's not like, oh my God, I can't believe black people or black men or the black identity. It's not even about that, right? Like at this point, it's not even about like, this is a black thing or an Asian thing or a Hispanic thing. This is a thing, period. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter your individual identity anymore. That's not enough to keep you in a community or for you to find fulfillment from communities. And I see, what I mean, all of that now. And I think, currently for a lot of people, Kanye West is just kind of more so like a one off thing. Same thing with like, I believe he was a school shooter, but I'm not 100% sure, right? One off thing. But um I don't think they are individual separate issues or occurrences. It's all connected. Do I think the kid and Kanye West were calling each other up every night? No, fuck not. But I do and would not be shocked if there are more communities and more groups and more individuals that obviously think like that, but also act and show up and participate in um those spaces, despite being black, despite being a woman, despite being Asian, despite being Hispanic, despite being gay, despite being trans. You know what I mean? I do not think we are able to say XYZ person wouldn't do this because they're black or because they're gay or because that's out. That's out the question. Um, and I've even had my own experiences where like I was just on Twitter, you know what I mean, and I saw this literally a Mexican man in the city of Mexico City from Mexico calling himself like a white Hispanic and being like a white supremacist. And then like going to his account because I'm like, this is so fucking hilarious. Like let me see. And he's retweeting stuff like Kanye will never be one of us. And that is what I'm like, this is so interesting. How so many people are willing or able to basically go into these types of communities, yet historically them being against you as like an individual or like not liking you as an individual, not valuing you as an individual. And I think that is the scary part to me because It's like kamikaze soldiers almost. And maybe that's not the right thing because I'm not 100% knowledgeable on the history of a kamikaze pilot. But I mean, you're basically a part of this group who is willing to allow you to like do their bidding on your behalf, and then when you are in jail, in trouble, locked up, whatever, you're just thrown to the wolves. Like, you know what I mean? You serve the purpose you were meant to serve and they needed you to serve in that moment, and now they're done with you. And I think that's the scary thing for me, right? Is that there are so many people who are now essentially allowing themselves to be lambs to slaughter. Now, do I want to prevent it? Do I just feel so sad and you know what I mean, just so carried, you know what I mean, and loving about that situation that I want to change it for them? Not at all. That was an individual decision, an individual choice. You got yourself there. That's what it is. But at the same time, I do think it is alarming, one, how they kind of pray and look towards like teenagers to do this stuff and to fall into these types of mindsets and beliefs, and how two, it allows people to get a sense of connection and community with individuals or even a group that does not care about you. That is what I think is so crazy. Another example I want to bring up, and mind you, this is all black people, so maybe this just, you know what I mean, is coon behavior. But another example I want to bring up is, I don't remember his name. He has the most punchable face to mankind. But he's some like gay, black, Republican, conservative, not Christian Walker. Not Christian. It's not Christian Walker, but it is somebody, I mean, in the same sort of sphere as him. And I didn't know this originally. I come to find this out later. But basically, I guess at some point he was at some sort of rally with other MAGA people, and they either did beat his ass or they were trying to beat his ass while calling him, you know, gay slurs and racial slurs. And I guess, you know, he then rebranded and said that he's more of like an independent conservative thinker, which is just a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. But even that goes into like the thing that I'm expressing, right? He has found community with a group of people that quite literally wanted to kill him, wanted to see his brains bashed in, curb stomp them teeth on the goddamn side of the road. That is who he found community with. And not even just that, that is who he went to go see and be around and spend time with. That's dangerous. And not only that, that one instance didn't make him say, I'm a not do this. I'm gonna leave this group of people alone. I'm gonna go over here and do something different. He quite literally still thinks the way that he thinks, still moves the way that he moves, still hangs out with the same type of people that think the way that think in the same mindset as those that wanted to beat his ass. That's crazy. That's crazy. Insane. So, you know, that is where we're heading. And obviously, right, I don't want to say that like, oh, black conservatives are part of this thing too, but like they kind of are. Same thing with like gay conservatives. And I don't want to make it just a political thing. I don't think it's just a political thing. I think, you know what I mean, for a lot of these people it goes beyond politics, which, you know, is sad because, you know, you essentially are part of this group or this company that is hateful, negative. They don't stand for anything positive. Even if, you know what I mean, they are wanting to do things in a more like traditional and or conservative way, the way in which they go about it is aggressive and violent and negative and essentially, you know, harmful to those that do not agree with them and do not think like them or do not 100% fall in line with them and their ideologies. That is a danger. That is a concern, and we're going to see that communities are going to be based off of and grow by ideology and shared thought. and not as much as, you know what I mean, well, I'm just rooting for everybody black. That type of like tribalistic mindset is kind of dying slowly, but it's dying. Tribalism as we know it and as we've kind of been used to it is dying. And I know this just because, you know, I am an astrologer, or at least highly knowledgeable in astrology, as well as learning about human design, that I do have some sort of insight into the shifts that are kind of happening in within the idea of tribalism and what it means and what it stands for. Tribalism will not really be around or supported or empowered um, in about 3 years, honestly. You know, and we're going to see the fall of it. And a lot of people aren't ready for that because there's a lot about tribalism and the way in which we've lived in tribalism that we just don't think about, right? Like, we don't think about the person who is like making sure the water is clean that comes out of our faucet, or that, like, you know, we have maintained a certain amount of like air pollution, or prevented that from happening. We don't think about the person that like disperses electricity within the electrical grid, or maintains that connection and facilitates it in like a safe and protected way. We don't think about those people, right? We don't think about those jobs. We don't think about those positions. They operate in the background of everything else. For teachers, nurses, dentists, lawyers, doctors, actors, politicians, restaurant workers, all of that stuff operates in the background. And that is a part of tribalism, because somebody does have to go into that position, into that work, into that job, and say, hey, I'm going to make sure that this district in this section, you know what I mean, is having a good response time with their water and their faucet. I'm going to make sure that the fracking that's going on here or there, you know what I mean, isn't getting in the way of everybody's water supply. Like that, you know, like that's not stuff that most people think about. And when tribalism eventually, you know, ends and dies and goes on to its a new thing, the individual person is going to have to do a lot more thinking and be much more aware of life, their surroundings, and things of that nature than they have been for at all ever. And again, that goes back into, you know what I mean, communities based off of ideology, in the sense that if we were still operating or still going to be living under a tribalistic mindset, then people leaving the tribe, leaving their racial group, their you know what I mean, gender group, whatever, or those types of communities, it would just be like an individualistic, once in a lifetime, not once in a lifetime, but a very, you know, uncommon thing. It would not be the new wave, but communities going off of shared thought is the new wave. Which is another reason why I think it is very indicative and imperative that we have creators or people that just can connect with, one, younger men for sure, but just the youth in general, to help kind of, I don't want to say protect, but at least prevent, you know, a lot of them from falling into those groups, in those mindsets, in those opinions, because, you know, they have nowhere else to turn to. However, I don't think it is all a negative. I don't think it's all a con. I don't think it's all, you know, something that we should like be weary of or try and you know, prevent, because there is some good about it, right? Like, one example I do, or not example, but one thing I do think will happen in kind of increase is interracial dating. I am 100%, I will honestly bet that like in 20 years, fuck that, 5 years from now, you know what I mean, we're going to see the like statistics of interracial dating increase by so much. And it's because, you know, if we think about communities being based off of shared thought and shared ideology, that then means that traditional tribalistic, you know, opinions and ways of moving will also be left, such as, you know what I mean, dating an outsider or dating someone that's not part of the community. Obviously, just from a society, God damn it, a psychological perspective, you know, humans are going to date and be with those that look the most like them or they have the most commonality with. But we can also kind of agree as a society that there have been times where you dated someone or you liked someone or y'all liked each other, you know what I mean, and they did not fit into or mesh within your family's, you know what I mean, standards. Whether that meant, you know what I mean, they were a different race, whether that meant they were a different faith, whether that meant they, you know what I mean, came from a different class, whether that meant they, you know what I mean, studied a different thing, right? Like you're a family of doctors and they decided to be a lawyer, right? Like it doesn't matter. There have, and we've even seen it in movies, right? Like there's the girl that actually finds a guy that's good for her, but like he's just not in her world type of shit. Same, you know, like that type of thing. We're going to see a lot more stories and a lot more couples and a lot more relationships form because two individuals actually connected really strongly and really closely as individuals, more so than they did as like community members or members of the same race, members of the same faith, etc., etc., etc. Um, and that is going to cause a couple issues, right? As more people decide to date interracially or at least leave behind their thoughts or reasons as to why they wouldn't date interracially, we're going to see a lot more people end up falling into that like right-winged, you know, mindset. Especially, you know, if I'm gonna, you know, talk to the black community, especially hoe tips. I'm sorry. You might think not, but it is. The second they see, you know what I mean, a good amount of like, I mean like in real life, like they homegirl next door type shit. You know what I mean, going out of their way to be open or entertain a man that isn't black. Yeah, and honestly, I'd even say isn't American because we do have a lot of black Americans that be ready to fight and cuss people out and get real antsy because you as a black American decided not to date another black American. That's a big issue within the gay community. You know what I mean? A lot of you black gay motherfuckers be ready to just pop out the mouth the second you see a black person not also trying to date another black person. You know what I mean? And that again goes back into tribalism and communities being based off of ideology and not identity because let's just keep it a buck. There are a lot of people who fit within like a racial community and kind of think or believe that everyone within their community should do something similar as them, right? Like the whole phrase, right? The whole phrase of black people aren't a monolith. That whole phrase came about because a lot of black people will sit around and call and police the blackness of other black individuals because they decided they wanted to do crocheting. They wanted to play badminton. They wanted to start swimming as a sport. They wanted to sing opera. They like playing the piano. Or they're fucking gay. They're fucking gay. Now, am I saying that, maybe saying that now, the gay niggas? No. But go, sure. 2000s, 2010s, let some black men come around and say that he bisexual. Nigga, you just gay. Bisexual, that's that white people shit. That's that white people shit. And like, I don't know. I be thinking about that phrase and I just think about it and I'm like, well, I mean, you be eating pizza, ain't that white people shit? You love Alfredo, ain't that white people shit? You can't help, you know what I mean, but put on Jolene. That's some white people shit. Like I'm just saying, like you to sit around and decide to police, you know, the blackness of somebody else because they're doing something that you wouldn't do as an individual is crazy. And that even goes into dating. Now, I do know fetishization is a thing and you know, people dating because they have a certain attraction to skin color. I'm not talking about that. I understand people have have preferences, right? And they only date this, and they only want that, and they only like this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone who made the individual decision that, you know what, I'm rocking with Mark because Mark is rocking with me. And I'm gonna just keep it a buck. For a lot of black women, and I would even say for a lot of black gay men, it is not necessarily easier to date outside of one race, but it comes with less headache and turmoil in terms of getting romanced. And I'm not trying to say that no black men can't romance people or anything of that nature, but in my opinion, if we're talking about like black American men, I just I they I'll say this, coming from my experience. Um, I wasn't taken out on a date and really like felt, you know, I don't want to say special, but like I was, desired or in a romantic sort of anything and whatnot until I had a black Puerto Rican take me out on a date. Still a black man, but like raised under like Puerto Rican culture. And so, from that aspect, we can see why black women and even some black gay men decide that they don't want to date black men, and or some might decide that they don't want to date Americans. They don't want to date black Americans, and that's an individual choice that a lot of black men get irritated with the individual for, because they feel as though that as a black person, since you're black, you should be like the rest of us. You should you know be like this. You should do that. You know what I mean? And I don't know, some people, it's easier for them to make the decision that, listen, I want love. I want to be treated like this. I want to be handled like this. I have not been treated and or handled like this by the types of men that look like me. So if the men that don't look like me are going to treat me in the way that I want, I'm going over there. Period. And I think it's interesting because, when we talk about mask and femmes not wanting to date, and go get with somebody that wants to be with you, or go get with somebody that wants to treat you right, or whatever, and they do, and it happens to not be a black person. Now they self hating. Now they anti black. Now they hate themselves. Like, what it is. And I would love to say that like it's just a race thing. That like they get irritated that it's a black person dating a white person, or a black person dating an Asian. Y'all get mad at a black American dating a damn Jamaican. And it's because in your head, you wouldn't do that. So you can't imagine or understand why another black person would do some shit that you wouldn't do. And that's the issue. That is a problem. That's another reason that's going to push people away from wanting to strictly be within community only and solely based off of identity. Does that mean that communities based off of identity will like go away? No. Does that mean that like the black community is going to die? No. Does that mean that like people are no longer going to come together for the black community? No. But that means is that we're going to see a lot more people put their time, effort, and energy in communities that they feel comfortable in, they feel like they agree with, they feel like they have a similar amount of like opinion with, shared thought behind, and not just we're all in this together because we're black. I see the black community coming together for issues and for specific reasons, but in terms of like, you know what I mean, I'm going out with my friends tonight, we're going to see a lot more people get into friend groups and friendships with individuals that do not look like them, and go out of their way to spend a large portion of their time with these individuals that do not look like them because they can agree on the same thing. And that goes even into dating. That goes into how, people cohabitate. That just is what it is. And this changes, I can't say it's something that like I'm 100% scared of or cautious towards, nor is it something that I'm just like 100% championing and excited about. But it's happening. It is. It just is. There's not much um, you could really do to stop it. And I do think it is a natural progression simply because I'm gonna just keep it a buck. And this goes back into being black again. Um, y'all, we be arguing about anything. Africans, Caribbeans, the Black Americans, and the diasporas in and of themselves have showed me that we kind of gonna move by ideology more so than community, because at this point, you know what I mean, people can't even talk about, you know what I mean, how one group hurt the other group without everybody trying to minimize it. But yeah, we can have, or we can see, if you go to comments, how individuals can have these conversations and get to it in a better way than the entire community. I don't think it's like the death of, you know, communal identities. But I do think, you know, we are seeing a rise of communal ideologies and communal, you know, shared thought, and that being the norm in which people find safety and find connection with. And I'm not surprised by it, you know. Black women, gay black people, I'd even say, you know what I mean, black people that are into like alternative aesthetics for a very long time do and have felt pushed out or like segregated or like, you know what I mean, barred from certain conversations or certain topics of conversations that affect them specifically, affect them, you know what I mean, more closely than it would, you know, other people of the black community. And so from that aspect, it's kind of a natural progression that the ones that are being outcasted be like, you know what? I don't have to sit here and deal with this. I don't have to take this. I can go somewhere else. And they do. Now, I don't think this is just a black person thing. This is going to happen with Asian people. It's going to happen with Latinos and Hispanics. It's going to happen with those of the indigenous community. It's going to happen. It's going to happen with white people. But I think this year, 2025, is the like start of it, like the transition process into this change. And we're going to see how like serious and how like big it is, you know, going into like 2026 and onward, and how like it's kind of hard, it'll be harder to ignore or harder to dismiss, honestly. And that's just based off of what I see and observe in the real world, in online spaces, as well as what I know, like from studying and looking at astrology, from looking at human design, and talking to people who are even more knowledgeable in astrology and in human design than I am. To where like I'm more so, I don't want to say I'm more prepared, but I have been kind of preparing myself in terms of like unlearning certain things and being more willing to hear someone else's background or their story, and learn from another person, and not be so ignorant towards their worldview. Because I'm coming to understand that, truthfully speaking, to a certain degree and to a certain sense, only trying to rely on your community based in identity in terms of like survival going forward is not going to be enough. You're going to have to be in community with people who you probably wouldn't have thought you would be with, or would not look the part of someone that you would be, you know, connected towards. But like for survival and for like your own sovereignty going forward, it probably would be best to learn from other people, especially those that do not look like you or do not have some sort of shared identity as you do. The more different they are from you, the better it is. And that goes across the board. If you are some like creative artist, you know what I mean, that is really knowledgeable with like social and political issues, and you know what I mean, you happen to have like a mixed background, maybe you need to go out and find some like old white dude that like plays with like wood and metal and shit, and like knows how to like, you know, play with his fucking hands and get dirty and whatnot. And that's literally just not even like a suggestion, but just an example as to what I mean when I say like different. I don't just mean like, oh, I'm black, but I was born in LA and they black and they was born in New York. No. I'm black American and they black Caribbean. No. Like if you're doing that, you need to be talking to someone who is from the Caribbean. Like they are currently living there now and they are like, you know, on the boat. They in the ocean, you know what I mean? They eating they fruit. That is who you need to get with. Not the, you know what I mean, Caribbean that in America. No, you need to get with someone who is different than you. A different nation, a different faith, different. Someone that you can learn something completely new from, as well as you could teach something new to. But you know, y'all come together because of shared thought. Like that's the only, like they're different in identity, but they are similar in ideology. And I mean, we see that with that. I think he was a young Israel or a black Israelite too, the school shooter. We see that with Kanye West, or Ye, I guess that's his name now. And we see that with that gay black MAGA man, right? They are all different visually from the communities that they, you know, put themselves in or interact with. Yet, they all share the same ideology. And so if you are a white person, a black person, an Asian person, a Hispanic Latino person that for a very long time has only been like, I'm only be with other Asians, I'm only be with other black people, I'm only be with other Hispanics, I'm only be with other white people, I suggest to you right now, cut that bullshit out. Like spend 2025 making friends that don't look like your community or don't look like, you know what I mean, the people you are most used to knowing. 100%. And that goes for every racial group. That goes for every sexuality. If you are gay, you know what I mean, go try and befriend a straight man. And I mean befriend a straight man. I'm being so serious. Especially if they do anything with fucking cars, they do anything with plumbing and electrician, like a tradesman. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Same thing if you're trans. I'm not telling you to go out and befriend a transphobe. No, not at all. But go out and befriend someone who isn't super knowledgeable on it. You know what I mean? They aren't against you or they aren't anti, but they also haven't known or been exposed to enough to be pro anything. Go befriend that individual, right? I'm telling you this, as much as you may feel as though you would have to teach them or like they would have to learn from you, I'm 100% certain that there is something that you could learn from them. 100%. But this has been the first episode of Spirit Uncut. I am Spirit, or Spear. I have hope you like this episode. Please leave any donations if you wish to. I'll leave, I guess, a PayPal or a Cash App somewhere in the description or, you know, wherever you are listening to this at. And I will be out with episode 2 sometime shortly. But thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have a great day.